The Atlanta Falcons have released their depth charts going into week 1 against the Miami Dolphins in the preseason, and there were some surprises in there, and I'll go as far to say some concerns in the depth charts. So we're going to break it all down on today's episode, but some people in the Chat Sports office think football is back, and the casual mind might think that. But I'm going to challenge everyone watching to be a bit more intelligent to believe that football is back. If football was back, the Pro Football Hall of Fame game would not have been called due to some rain. Come on. If football is back, they would have played all 4 quarters. So if you are ready for real Falcons football to get back, drop an ATL for me down below in the comments section. Now, this one might not be a big surprise compared to some other ones in the video, but the Falcons quarterback depth chart is out, and no surprise, Kirk Cousins is QB1. But the real surprise is Michael Penix already coming in at QB2 ahead of Taylor Heinicke. You've seen a handful of other teams like the Broncos and the Vikings, who drafted a quarterback in round 1 this year, put their rookie QB at QB3. However, the Falcons have already put Michael Penix at QB2 ahead of veteran Taylor Heinicke. Not a big surprise to me because I feel like Michael Penix has proven to be the better quarterback so far. But what I will add to this conversation is the following. Watch for a Taylor Heinicke trade to come down over the next few weeks. If another team picks up an injury either to their starter or to their backup and they feel like, listen, we value the backup quarterback position, 75% of teams over the last 4 years have had their starter miss 4+ games in a season at some point, they could make a call for Taylor Heinicke and go, listen, Atlanta, he's on your bench and deep in it. Give us Taylor Heinicke for a 5th-round draft pick. We know you miss yours because of the tampering allegations, allegedly. Still not convinced of it. So I could see Taylor Heinicke getting moved if the Falcons feel like Penix has already sewn up the QB2 job. We might as well get something for a guy who's not even going to be a backup on our team. Now, the real surprise in this video comes in the wide receiver room. Ray McCloud has taken over as wide receiver 3 over Rondale Moore, who was slated to have that role after getting traded for Desmond Ridder in the offseason. Rondale Moore losing the wide receiver 3 job already is a concern to me, and it should be a concern to you. This Falcons offense is going to be an absolute 180 from what we saw the last few years under Arthur Smith, where they were a run-first team, and they were one of the last 5 teams in the NFL in pass attempts. Under Zach Robinson, Raheem Morris, and a $180 million quarterback in Kirk Cousins, they're going to go from bottom 10 in passing for the last 3 years to top 10 in passing. And they need to have good wide receivers. And I'm sorry to Ray McCloud, but he was not signed for that role. He was signed to be a kick and punt returner. In his career, 77 games, he has 768 yards, 1 career touchdown. It's not that Ray McCloud is an awful wide receiver, but he is not designed to be in an offense that's going to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. That was not the game plan when you signed Ray McCloud. Atlanta, go get another wide receiver. If this offense, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but based on where Kirk Cousins came from, how much you're paying him, your offensive coordinator coming from this Sean McVay tree, along with your head coach in some ways, if those 3 pieces bring even half of what they had at their last stop, it's going to be an air raid offense. It's going to be a lot of 3 wide receivers on the field. And right now, your 3rd wide receiver is your kick returner. Like, if Rondale Moore can't fight off a kick returner for wide receiver 3, you need to go find a real wide receiver. Turn to free agency. Go call Brandon Ayuk. I hear he's looking for a new home. But no, I am not on board with the idea of Ray McCloud being in line for a huge role on this offense when he has gone for maybe 100 to 200 yards the last 3 years of his NFL career each season. All right, before we look at some other surprises from the Falcons depth chart, make sure to get started with our friends over at GameTime. If you love summer baseball and want to catch a Braves game or any other major league team in your area, you're going to want to give GameTime a shot. One thing I really like about GameTime are their flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Plus, they offer the GameTime guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on to the linebacker room, where it's a little bit of a surprise to the Nate Landman stands out there like myself. Troy Anderson penciled in as the starting inside linebacker alongside Caden Ellis. We kind of saw this coming since Troy Anderson started the year off last year next to Caden Ellis before suffering an early injury, but Nate Landman played so well in his spot, I thought maybe they'd find a way to keep him on the field as well. Unfortunately for the Falcons, they have three really good players at a position group that's just not as valuable as it once was. If this was 2006, this Falcons defense would be looked at way differently because they'd have three awesome starting linebackers: Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, Nate Landman. But it's not, and in this day and age, you need speed on your defense because the offense brings a lot more speed. But I still revert back to find a way to get your best 11 on the field. This is not a Falcons defense that is oozing in talent. You've got good pieces. Jesse Bates is an all-pro. A.J. Terrell's a Pro Bowl caliber cornerback. Grady Jarrett's a Pro Bowl defensive tackle. David Onyemata is a stout interior nose tackle. Find a way to get your best 11 on the field. It may not be the most conventional lineup, but I would still rather go down swinging with your best 11 on the field than just trying to appease what the modern defense is supposed to look like versus leaning into the strengths of your personnel. On to the cornerbacks. If you have been living under a rock for the first few weeks of training camp, let me wake you up. Mike Hughes is your starting CB2. All signs, well, not all, but a lot of the signs in the spring pointed to Clark Phillips starting at cornerback 2, but ever since training camp broke ground, it has been Mike Hughes out there with the first team defense, and he's not really looking back. But I will add Clark Phillips today at the joint practice with the Miami Dolphins had some awesome plays, came down with an interception. So I don't think Clark Phillips is out of that role or out of that competition just yet. I still think this is going to be a competition that goes deep into the preseason. Both these players are probably going to play a lot of snaps in the first two preseason games. Fingers crossed, no injuries. But I'm thinking we're not out of the woods yet for the CB2 competition. It's probably going to persist for the next few training camp and practices and preseason games. But Mike Hughes comes into his second year with Atlanta. Last year, he was a backup, not playing a whole lot. Before that, he was bouncing around. The former first-rounder by the Vikings was with the Chiefs, then with the Lions. Meanwhile, Clark Phillips, he's entering his second season with the Atlanta Falcons. Former day 3 draft pick out of Utah with excellent ball skills. That's what he was known for in Salt Lake City. Great production, great ability to always find himself near the football. He may not be the biggest guy in the DB room. He may not be a sound tackler, but he's going to have a knack for finding the football into his hands more often than not. So I'm not giving up on Clark Phillips, but this will be a fun one to watch during the preseason. And lastly, the safety department. Richie Grant resumes his starting role after being benched at the end of last year for 7th-round pick DeMarco Hellams out of Alabama. And right off the bat, between Mike Hughes over Clark Phillips and Richie Grant over DeMarco Hellams, you can see physical differences between the Arthur Smith coaching regime and the Raheem Morris coaching staff. Just swapping out starters the other staff had on the bench. And we're going to find out once the regular season gets underway who was right. I mean, Arthur Smith and that defensive coaching staff led by Ryan Nielsen, benching Richie Grant for DeMarco Hellams. Raheem Morris comes in, hits the undo button. When Jeff Okudah got benched, who did Atlanta turn to last year? Clark Phillips. This year, no Jeff Okudah. Who is slated to be the starting cornerback next to A.J. Terrell? Mike Hughes. So I'm excited to see. I'm hopeful that this current Falcons coaching staff will be correct because ultimately that's what's best for the 2024 Falcons. But this is something you can really point to and go, all right, we're seeing some big differences between last year's coaching staff and this year's coaching staff. All right, how would you grade the Falcons roster, though? Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. Give me a Madden grade down below in the comments section. I'd give the Falcons roster a B to B minus. I mean, they got some star powers like Kirk Cousins, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Jesse Bates. All 5 guys. Chris Lyncham, the offensive line's awesome. Pro Bowl caliber guys. But it kind of hangs down towards the B minus because of some question marks, like Richie Grant, like Mike Hughes, like a lot of players on defense. So we'll have to wait and see, but give me your letter grade down below. All right, some trivia to wrap up today's show. Who is the Falcons' all-time leader in interceptions? Get in the comment section right now. I'm going to give you the answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That would be cornerback Roland Lawrence, played from 1973 to 1980, hauling in 39 interceptions. So if you got the question correct, congratulations. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already, and we'll hang out with you next time.